sun shone brightly through the large glass windows of the city bank, casting a warm, welcoming glow over the sleek marble floors. The sound of soft chatter, the tapping of keyboards, and the occasional ring of the phone filled the air, creating a familiar, routine atmosphere. Customers lined up in the neat rows, each one immersed in their own tasks, their voices hushed in the efficiency of the bank's daily operations. Steven, a middle-aged man in a slightly worn suit, stood quietly in line. His eyes scanned the room, but his mind seemed far away. His steps were deliberate, slow, as if carrying the weight of something heavier than the briefcase at his side. Today was like any other day, or so he thought. When it was his turn, he approached the counter where the young bank manager stood. She greeted him with a smile, professional yet warm. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" Steven nodded, keeping his expression neutral, but there was an unmistakable urgency in his voice as he spoke. "I need to withdraw the full balance from my account, please." The manager's smile faded slightly, her fingers pausing on the keyboard. She glanced at the computer screen, eyes narrowing for a split second. Then, with a polite but firm tone, she replied, "I'm sorry, sir, but your account is currently frozen due to some irregularities. I can't process the withdrawal at this moment." Steven's face tightened, his brow furrowing. "Frozen? What do you mean? I need that money." "Right now." She glanced at him, her voice cold yet courteous. "I'm afraid I don't have the authority to release those funds. You'll need to contact the branch manager for further assistance." The tension in the air shifted. The calm atmosphere of the bank, usually so reassuring, suddenly felt distant. This wasn't a simple inconvenience. Steven's heart raced as he grasped the gravity of the situation. There was no mistake. This wasn't just about money. There was something much deeper at play. Have you ever faced a situation like this? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The bank manager, a young woman with sharp, professional features, glanced at Steven with a look of mild confusion before her fingers quickly danced across the keyboard. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't authorize the withdrawal of your full balance at this time. Your account has been flagged for some irregularities, and we've temporarily frozen the funds until further verification." Steven stood frozen for a moment, staring at the manager as if expecting her to laugh or apologize, but the look on her face was entirely serious. She wasn't joking. Flagged, frozen. His voice was barely above a whisper, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. "What are you talking about? I've been a customer here for years. My account's been in good standing. I need that money now." The bank manager blinked, taking a moment to respond. "I understand your frustration, but without approval from the branch manager or the verification team, there's nothing I can do. I'm afraid you'll need to come back later or wait for their instructions." Steven felt his chest tighten. He could feel his face heating up. The calm atmosphere of the bank, usually so predictable and professional, now felt oppressive, and every passing second only added to his growing anxiety. He had no idea what was happening. What could possibly be wrong with his account? "I don't have time for this," he said, forcing a steady breath. "What's going on?" "I'm not leaving until I get the money." The manager's demeanor didn't change. She was unflappable, as if dealing with irate customers was just part of the daily routine. "Sir, I understand this is frustrating, but I can't process the transaction without the proper clearance. It's out of my hands." Steven could feel his anger rising. His hands clenched into fists. He tried to stay calm, but it was hard. The money wasn't just for a casual purchase. He had bills to pay, obligations to meet. And now, the one place he trusted to get the funds was turning him away. The situation was spiraling beyond his control, and it made him feel powerless. The bank manager's calm, controlled demeanor only infuriated him more. Why wasn't she taking him seriously? She wasn't listening to him. Was she even trying to help? He took a deep breath, trying to manage the rising panic. "I don't care what the system says. I need the money now. This is ridiculous." The manager's eyes flickered to the computer screen, and then back to Steven. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do," she repeated. "You'll need to contact the branch manager. Perhaps they'll be able to expedite the process." "Contact them? You're the one working here. What's the point of even having a bank manager if they can't do anything?" The manager's voice was calm as she spoke again. "I understand your frustration, sir, but the system is in place for a reason. If you'd like, I can schedule an appointment with the branch manager. They'll be in later this afternoon." Steven's frustration boiled over. He wasn't just frustrated with the manager now, he was angry at the whole system. He had been paying into this bank for years. Every month, his paychecks went straight to his account. Now, when he needed the money the most, they were shutting him out. He couldn't stand it. His hands trembled as he spoke again. "No, I can't wait that long. I need the money right now today. I'm not going anywhere until you fix this." His voice had grown louder, more forceful. The manager didn't flinch. "I'm sorry, sir, but I cannot process your request without further instructions from the verification team." Something about the situation felt off to Steven. It was becoming increasingly clear that there was more to this than the manager was letting on. The way she spoke, the way her eyes kept flicking to the computer screen, as if there was something more she wasn't telling him, made him uneasy. He took a step closer, leaning over the counter, his voice low but intense. "Why won't you tell me what's really going on? Is there something you're not saying? You can't just freeze my account without explanation." The manager's expression softened for a moment, but it was brief. She straightened her posture and cleared her throat, her professionalism returning. "Sir, I'm simply following procedure. If you want more details, you'll need to speak to the branch manager or call our customer service department." Steven could feel the blood rushing to his head. He had always trusted the bank, always thought of it as a safe, dependable place. But this was something else entirely. He could feel the eyes of the other customers on him now. Some were staring outright, while others seemed to try and ignore the scene unfolding in front of them. But Steven didn't care. He couldn't stand the feeling of being powerless in this moment, of being told that he couldn't access his own money. "I'm not leaving," he repeated, his voice firmer now, determined. "Not until I get some answers." Steven stood there, his hands clenched into fists, his breathing shallow. The more the bank manager repeated her polite, unhelpful phrases, the more his patience wore thin. Every word that left her mouth seemed to be another nail in the coffin of his frustration. He had tried to stay calm, tried to reason, but now it was clear. This wasn't about simple bureaucracy. Something deeper was at play, and it was quickly spiraling out of control. He took a step back, looking around the bank as if searching for someone who could step in and resolve the issue. But no one else seemed to be moving. Everyone else was either distracted by their own business or pretending not to notice the tension building between him and the manager. It felt like the whole place was conspiring to keep him in this helpless, powerless position. "You really don't get it, do you?" Steven said, his voice rising, though he tried to keep it in check. "I'm not asking for some small withdrawal. I need this money now. This isn't just inconvenient, it's an emergency." The manager maintained her calm, controlled demeanor, like a brick wall that wouldn't crack. She seemed impervious to his growing frustration. "Sir, I understand that this is urgent for you. However, the system is designed for security and protection. There's nothing I can do without clearance from the branch manager." Steven felt a fire building in his chest. This wasn't just a simple mistake, it was an absurdity. His entire life was being held up by red tape, and it made no sense. The more the manager spoke, the more distant she seemed, as if she were repeating rehearsed lines that had no connection to the urgency of his situation. He leaned forward, his voice low and deliberate. "You don't understand. I don't need some scripted response. I need to get my money, and I need it now. I've been a customer here for over 10 years. Don't I deserve to at least know what's going on?" Her response was automatic, detached. "I am simply following procedures, sir. If you would like, I can escalate the matter to a senior manager, but it could take some time. I'm sorry, but this is the process." Steven felt a cold sweat forming on his brow. How could this be happening? How could something as simple as withdrawing money turn into this bureaucratic nightmare? His mind raced as he looked around the bank once more. The other customers were eyeing him now, some of them even whispering. He was suddenly acutely aware of every set of eyes on him. They were watching a man at his breaking point, a man who was struggling to get something that was rightfully his. "Time? You want me to wait?" Steven spat, disbelief rising in his chest. "I don't have time to wait. You don't understand what's going on right now. I don't know what's happening to my account, but I need that money. You can't just freeze my assets without giving me a damn explanation. This isn't how it works." His voice had escalated, louder now, demanding a response that was far beyond what the manager was offering. The surrounding customers were no longer pretending not to notice. Some had taken out their phones, recording the scene, while others stood frozen in place, unsure whether to intervene or watch from a distance. The bank manager, unfazed, continued to type away at her computer, her gaze never leaving the screen. The more Steven spoke, the more her professionalism seemed to distance her from the situation. It was as if she didn't hear him at all. The fact that she wasn't reacting to his increasing desperation only made Steven feel smaller, more powerless. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the rising panic in his chest. Please just tell me what happened. Why is my account frozen? I've done nothing wrong. The manager didn't flinch. Sir, as I said, I cannot provide specific details about your account. You'll need to speak with a branch manager for more information. Why is everything always so difficult? Steven's voice wavered with frustration. What happened to service? To actually helping people when they need it? I don't care about procedures. I care about getting my money today. It was then that Steven noticed the faintest shift in the manager's expression, a flicker of something. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make him pause. He could tell she knew something more than she was saying. Her eyes darted to the screen, then to him, then back to the screen again. But she didn't respond. What is it? Steven asked, his tone turning sharp. What are you hiding from me? What's going on with my account? This doesn't make sense. The manager hesitated for a moment, her fingers still hovering over the keyboard. She finally sighed and spoke, her voice lower now, almost apologetic. I'm afraid I'm not authorized to provide that information. But if you'd like, I can escalate the matter. Steven's patience had long since vanished. The thought of being passed off to someone else, only to be subjected to more waiting, was too much. His heart pounded in his chest, and a wave of frustration surged through him. He wasn't going to leave without answers. Escalate, Steven echoed, his voice loud with disbelief. I've had enough of escalation. I want answers now. I'm not going anywhere until I get them. The manager looked at him for a moment, then turned to the phone behind the counter. Without saying another word, she picked up the receiver and dialed a number. The call was short, a few whispered words exchanged, but Steven could see the change in her demeanor. She hung up and looked at him, her expression neutral. Please wait here. Someone will be with you shortly. The frustration inside Steven boiled over, but he had no choice but to comply. He clenched his jaw, his knuckles white as he tried to hold on to whatever sliver of composure remained. The next few minutes felt like hours. Have you ever been in a situation where you were denied something you knew you were entitled to? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. The tension in the bank was thick. Steven stood at the counter, his fists clenched, his mind racing, trying to piece together the fragments of this maddening situation. The bank manager's cool detachment only fueled the growing fire inside him. Every moment he spent waiting felt like a personal affront. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about his dignity. His entire day, maybe even his life, had been put on hold by a system that didn't seem to care. His patience was wearing thin. He had come here for something simple, to withdraw his money, just like any other day. But now, this one simple request was spiraling out of control. The more the manager insisted there was nothing she could do, the more infuriating it became. The minutes ticked by slowly, painfully. The buzz of the other customers faded into the background. He could feel their eyes on him, some curious, others judgmental. He hated it. They all thought the same thing, that he was the one causing trouble. But they didn't know. They didn't understand. They hadn't spent years working hard, trusting a bank that had now turned its back on him. His voice broke the silence. How is this possible? Steven's voice was strained, barely holding on to control. How can I just be told I can't have my own money? The bank manager glanced up from her computer screen, her face impassive. Sir, as I've told you, the account is frozen for security reasons. You need to speak with the branch manager. I've already heard that. Steven's voice grew louder, the frustration spilling over. I'm not leaving without answers. I'm done waiting. His heart was pounding now. This wasn't just inconvenience anymore. He felt helpless, like a cog in a machine that didn't care about the people it affected. And the worst part, he was the one being blamed. Everyone else was too scared to speak up, so he was the one left to carry the weight of this mess. His hands trembled as he reached for his wallet, but the movement was sharp, angry, as though he was trying to force something to happen, to take control of a situation that was slipping from his grasp. The manager looked at him, her expression unchanged, and it only made him angrier. Why won't anyone listen to me? He muttered to himself, loud enough for the manager to hear. I'm telling you I need that money now. You don't get it. The manager stood her ground, I understand that you're upset, sir. But this is a security issue. The decision is out of my hands. Out of your hands. Steven repeated, his voice rising. This is my account. My money. You don't get to just play by the rules and pretend nothing's happening. You don't get to sit there and act like everything's fine when you're holding my livelihood hostage. The silence between them thickened. People in the bank were now watching the scene unfold, murmuring quietly to each other. The manager still didn't seem moved. Her calmness, in fact, seemed to provoke Steven even more. His pulse quickened, his emotions turning into something more primal, more urgent. He couldn't keep quiet anymore. Look, I don't care about your procedures. I don't care about your system, he said, his words coming out in quick, clipped breaths. I'm not leaving this counter until I get what I came for. The manager didn't flinch. Instead, she stood up slowly and walked over to the phone at the counter. The clicking of her heels on the marble floor felt like a drumbeat in the tense silence of the room. She picked up the phone and dialed a number, her eyes avoiding Steven's gaze. He could feel the cold, impersonal nature of it all, as if she were just going through the motions of bureaucracy. Please hold, she said into the phone. And just like that, Steven was left standing there, alone with his growing frustration. Every second felt like an eternity. His chest tightened with anxiety, but it wasn't just about the money anymore. He was starting to realize that this was something bigger. He wasn't just fighting for the money in his account. He was fighting for his sense of fairness, for his dignity. He didn't deserve to be treated like this. After a few moments, the manager hung up the phone. She turned to him, her expression still neutral, but there was a slight shift in her demeanor. I've contacted the branch manager, she said, her voice calm but firm. They will be here shortly. Steven stared at her, trying to keep his composure. How long? He demanded, his impatience breaking through again. It will take a few minutes, the manager replied coolly. He felt a surge of anger. A few minutes. That's all I get after hours of this, I'm telling you. I'm not leaving this counter. You either tell me what's happening, or I'm staying here until someone does. The manager sighed, a hint of exhaustion in her eyes. I understand, but as I've explained, there's a procedure for these things. The words hit him like a slap. Procedure. He wasn't a person to her. He was a problem to be solved, a box to be checked. The cold efficiency of the whole situation only made him feel smaller, like he didn't matter. I don't need your procedure, Steven said, his voice low but fierce. I need the money in my account. Now, at that moment, something shifted in the air. The weight of his words hung between them. The crowd had fallen silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The tension had reached its peak, and Steven realized he had crossed a line from frustration to determination. He wasn't going anywhere until he had answers. The silence in the bank grew thicker. Steven was no longer just frustrated. His mind was racing, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and suspicion. He tried to focus on the manager's face, but she was unreadable, her expression tight and impersonal. What kind of bank froze someone's account without notice? Why wasn't she telling him what was really going on? He glanced at the other customers, some now openly watching the exchange. No one spoke. They were all waiting for something, waiting for the next step, waiting for him to either back down or escalate the situation further. It felt like the entire bank had become a stage for this strange performance, and Steven was the one on display. But the problem was he wasn't playing by the rules anymore. He didn't care about playing nice. He cared about answers. Do you have any idea how this looks? He finally asked, his voice hoarse. You're holding my money, and I'm not even being told why. I've been a customer here for years, and now you're treating me like a criminal. The bank manager didn't flinch. Her fingers remained poised over the keyboard, as if she were typing in slow motion. Each word calculated, every response deliberate. She wasn't about to break under pressure. But Steven wasn't backing down either. This doesn't feel right, he muttered, mostly to himself. You're not even giving me any answers. You're just throwing around words like frozen, like procedures, but not a single explanation. Her eyes flicked briefly to the screen, her gaze avoiding his. She was hiding something. He could feel it in his gut, that knowing suspicion that she knew more than she was letting on. I'm sorry, she said, her voice still steady. But this is all I can do for you at this point. I will escalate the issue to the branch manager, but I have no control over the matter. A low, almost imperceptible tremor ran through Steven's hands. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't just the anger or frustration. It was the fact that he wasn't being treated like a person. This was some kind of game to her, to the bank. He was a number, a customer ID. His money, his life, was just part of a bigger machine. And that idea made him feel smaller and smaller by the second. Escalate it. Steven repeated, shaking his head. How many times are you going to say that? I've been escalated through your system for half an hour. If I'm such a priority here, why am I getting the runaround? The manager didn't respond right away. She opened her mouth to speak, but hesitated. Steven saw the briefest flicker of doubt cross her face, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. I'm sorry, sir. I wish I could do more, but this is beyond my control. Her voice was mechanical now, like she was reading from a script. I've done everything I can. Please have a seat, and the branch manager will be with you shortly. The words were final, but they only stoked the fire inside Steven. He couldn't just sit there and wait for another hour. He had to know what was going on. He had to break through the wall of indifference that seemed to surround the bank manager and her mysterious procedures. You think I'm just going to sit here? Steven's voice was rising again, and he didn't care who heard. I'm telling you, this isn't right. I need someone to explain this to me now. The manager's eyes finally met his, and for the first time, Steven saw something shift in her. Not fear, but something darker. She was tired of this. She wanted him to leave. She wanted to be done with him. But something had been stirred in Steven. The truth had been buried in layers of bureaucracy, and he was going to dig through every single one of them until he found it. The manager said, lowering her voice, I understand you're upset, but I really can't help you. I'm just following protocol. Maybe if you wait for the branch manager. I'm not waiting, Steven snapped, his frustration boiling over.
I'm done with this.
I need my money and I need answers. This is absurd. He wasn't sure where the words came from. Part of him was ready to storm out, to demand a solution. But another part of him knew that wouldn't work either. He wasn't going to leave without answers, but the longer he stayed, the more he realized that this wasn't just about money. It was about respect. It was about control. And right now, the bank was controlling everything. Just as Steven was about to push further, the phone on the counter rang. The bank manager paused, reaching for the receiver with one hand while still looking at Steven with a faint sense of discomfort. She picked it up and spoke in a much softer voice than before. Yes? Sir, yes, of course. She paused, her fingers still gripping the receiver as she listened. Then her eyes flicked back to Steven, this time with a different intensity. I understand, sir. I'll take care of it immediately.
Thank you.
She hung up the phone and turned to Steven. There was something in her eyes now, something that wasn't there before, a sense of urgency. Mr. Stevens, she began, her voice no longer cool, but rather tinged with a hint of anxiety. I have just been informed that your situation has been escalated, and I've received clearance to proceed with your withdrawal. You can collect your funds now. Steven blinked. He wasn't sure if he had heard her correctly.
Wait, what?
I can release your funds now, but you'll have to sign here, she said, handing him a slip of paper and a pen. There's been a mix-up, but it's cleared up now. Steven stared at the paper in disbelief. The call had just come through and everything was suddenly okay. He could hardly believe it. Steven stood at the counter, stunned by the sudden shift. His anger, which had been building for what felt like hours, now mixed with confusion. The manager, after what seemed like an eternity of resistance, was suddenly ready to hand over his money. His mind raced, trying to piece together the conversation he'd overheard, the quick phone call she had just taken, and the abrupt change in her demeanor. What had just happened? Why had his account been frozen, and why was everything cleared up so suddenly? The bank manager slid the paperwork across the counter. Please sign here, Mr. Stevens, she said, her voice much more subdued now. Everything has been cleared. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Steven hesitated for a moment. The signature didn't seem to matter anymore. His gut told him there was something more to this, something he wasn't being told. But he had no choice. His head was spinning, and after the ordeal, all he wanted was to leave with his money. I don't understand, Steven muttered, his hand hovering over the signature line. You just froze my account without telling me why, and now it's magically fixed. The manager avoided his gaze. It was a mix-up in the system, sir. The information just came through that you're cleared for withdrawal. I'm truly sorry for the delay. A sharp chill ran through Steven as he signed the paper. Something about her tone didn't sit right. The situation felt too smooth, too orchestrated. almost like they were hoping he would just walk away without asking more questions. But Steven had already crossed a line today, and he wasn't about to let it go now. "You know what?" Steven said, looking directly at her. "I want to know what's going on. I've been treated like a criminal for the last hour, and now you're telling me that my account was frozen by mistake. You can't just leave it at that." The bank manager sighed, glancing down at the screen in front of her. She hesitated for a moment, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but the details are not something I'm authorized to disclose." The words hit Steven like a slap to the face.
Not authorized. This is my money.
"You're telling me you froze my account and now you can't even tell me why?" "I can't give you any specifics," she repeated, her voice growing quieter. Frustrated, Steven gripped the counter. "You have to tell me something. What's the point of this? I've been a loyal customer for years, and now you're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal."
I need answers.
Just then, Steven's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting another routine call or notification, but what he saw made his stomach drop. The caller ID showed a number from the bank's executive office, a direct line to someone with authority. Without thinking, Steven answered it. "Hello, Mr. Stevens." The voice on the other end was calm, steady, but there was a subtle authority in it that immediately got his attention. "This is John Miller from the bank's senior management. I'm calling about your account." Steven's heart began to race again, but this time it wasn't anger. It was pure curiosity. "Yes, what's going on with my account? Why was it frozen? I'm calling to personally apologize for the inconvenience," John Miller said, his tone softer but still formal. "There was a delay in processing your request. A decision had to be made at a higher level. However, I'm here to clear up any confusion. We've been reviewing your account due to some unusual activity in the last 24 hours. The words hit Steven like a brick. Unusual activity? What does that mean? Miller didn't hesitate. "We've been monitoring a large transaction that was flagged by our security system. It was just a precautionary measure to ensure there were no fraudulent activities." Steven felt his chest tighten. He had never done anything suspicious. The only reason he needed the money now was because he was in the middle of some urgent personal matters. His mind raced. What large transaction were they referring to? "Hold on," Steven said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You froze my account because of some flag in your system. But I don't even know what this transaction is. We have security measures in place to protect against unauthorized access," Miller explained. "There was an automatic hold placed until our team could confirm the transaction. I apologize for the confusion. We've lifted the hold, and you're free to proceed with your withdrawal." Steven was silent for a moment. His mind was still processing the information, still trying to connect the dots. Something wasn't adding up. Why hadn't anyone mentioned this before? Why had it taken so long for them to tell him what was going on? "So, you mean to tell me that all of this could have been avoided if someone had just told me what was happening?" Steven asked, a bitter edge to his voice. John Miller's tone softened again. "I understand your frustration. The issue was quickly resolved once we reviewed the details. The security measures are there for your protection, Mr. Stevens. And again, I apologize for the delay and any stress it caused." Steven's head was spinning. He had just gone through an emotional roller coaster, and now, in a matter of seconds, everything had been cleared up. But something about the situation didn't feel right. The sudden urgency of the call, the speed with which the issue had been resolved, it all felt too orchestrated. "I appreciate you clearing things up, but I still don't understand why this happened in the first place. Why wasn't I informed earlier? Why was I treated like I did something wrong?" Steven asked, his voice now tinged with wariness. "I assure you, Mr. Stevens," Miller said, his voice firm, "this is a one-off situation. The team has been briefed, and this will not happen again. If you need anything further, feel free to reach out directly to me or our team." Before Steven could say another word, the line clicked off. The call was over. The suddenness of it left him standing in the bank, holding the phone in his hand, unsure of what to think. He looked up at the bank manager, who had been watching him throughout the call, her eyes avoiding his. He realized that she knew more than she had let on. She knew about the call before he did, and that wasn't sitting right with him. What do you think was really going on with Steven's account? Do you think the bank was hiding something from him?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
The bank manager handed Steven the envelope with his funds, and for a moment everything seemed to pause. The money was his again, But the question still lingered. Despite the phone call clearing things up, Steven couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at him. Something about this whole ordeal felt off, as though he had been manipulated into something he didn't understand. He stood at the counter, staring at the envelope in his hand, his fingers trembling ever so slightly. The relief of finally getting the money was clouded by a deeper sense of unease. Why had they frozen his account in the first place? Why was it all so rushed to be fixed, so suddenly? As he turned to leave, the weight of the situation settled in. The emotions that had been bubbling just beneath the surface over the past few hours now came crashing down. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about the system failing him. It was about how powerless he had felt, how no one had listened to him until it was too late. Steven paused for a moment near the bank's exit. His mind swirled with frustration, questions, and doubts. The past hour had been a whirlwind of confusion, but now, standing in front of the doors, he felt like he was walking away with more questions than answers. Then, as if on cue, his phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. This time, a message appeared on the screen. "Mr. Stevens, this is John Miller. I want to personally apologize again for the situation today. We value your business. Please don't hesitate to reach out directly if you have any concerns. Our team will be taking additional steps to ensure this doesn't happen again. Thank you for your patience." Steven stared at the screen, processing the words. The message was polite, professional, and carefully crafted, almost too carefully. It felt like they were trying to make it seem like nothing had happened. Like this was just another day in the life of a bank customer. But it wasn't just another day for Steven. He had been caught in the middle of something he didn't understand. His patience had been tested in ways he hadn't expected, and the question remained, why had his account been flagged in the first place? Why hadn't anyone told him sooner? He turned back toward the bank manager, who was now standing by the desk, her eyes lowered. She was busy with other customers, as if nothing had changed, as if everything was back to normal. But Steven wasn't so sure. It wasn't just about the inconvenience, it was about the lack of transparency, the lack of answers. And that wasn't something he could simply walk away from. For a long moment, he stood there, his fingers tightening around the envelope in his hand. Was he just another faceless customer, another number in a database to them, or did he deserve more than that? The more he thought about it, the more it became clear he deserved respect. He deserved answers. He walked back to the counter, his steps deliberate, purposeful. The bank manager noticed him approaching and looked up, startled. "Is there something else I can help you with, Mr. Stevens?" she asked, her voice polite but tinged with a hint of nervousness. "Yes," Steven said, his voice steady. "I want to know the truth." The manager blinked, clearly caught off guard. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't want any more scripted apologies. I want to know why my account was flagged in the first place, and I want to know why it took so long for someone to explain what was going on," Steven said, his words firm, cutting through the polite facade that had been placed between them. "I'm not leaving until I get the answers I deserve." The manager hesitated for a moment, glancing nervously over her shoulder. It was as if she were debating whether to call security, whether to shut this down and go back to the usual routine. But something in Steven's eyes made her pause. She knew this wasn't just about the transaction anymore. This was about something bigger, something that couldn't be ignored. "I can't give you all the details," she said quietly, her voice losing some of its earlier coldness. "But I can tell you this, your account was flagged by a system error, and that caused the delay. There's no other reason. It was a mistake, one that shouldn't have happened, and I'm sorry." Steven felt a knot in his chest loosen just a little, but the unease still lingered. A mistake. That was it. Was that the full explanation? Or was this all a cover-up for something more? "But you knew there was a mistake," Steven pressed. "And you still made me wait. Why? Why couldn't I have been told this sooner?" The manager met his gaze, the last bit of professional detachment slipping away. "I'm truly sorry, Mr. Stevens. There's nothing more I can say. But please know that this won't happen again." Steven stood there for a moment, taking it all in. He wasn't sure if the explanation satisfied him, or if it made him feel even more uncertain. But one thing was clear, the system had failed him today, and in the process, it had taught him something important. He wasn't just another customer. He was a person, someone who deserved respect, who deserved transparency, and from now on, he would demand both. As he turned to leave once more, the weight of the situation lifted slightly from his shoulders. The day had been a reminder, not just about the importance of money, but about the importance of standing up for yourself when things go wrong. As Steven walked out of the bank and into the daylight, he knew that the experience had changed him. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about having the courage to ask questions, to demand answers, and to not back down until he got what he deserved.